All right, joining us is Attorney General Kris Mayes here this morning.
Good morning.
It's nice to see you.
Good morning. It's great to see you guys.
Good morning. What's life been like now? How do you tackle two jobs, running for re-election and also becoming the Attorney General?
Yeah, I will say that is the biggest difference between obviously running the first time and this time. And, you've got to strike that balance for sure. Mm-hmm. And part of it is even when you're out campaigning, you're doing the job, talking to people, gathering information, to your point about giving out your cell phone. I probably give out my cell phone way too much too, but my staff drives my staff crazy.
But it's the best way to communicate with people,
true.
and you do want that one-on-one communication with people.
Totally.
You want to understand the constituents. You want to understand the needs of the community.
Yeah, and that's why I do so many town halls. In fact, we're going to be down in Sierra Vista tomorrow doing a town hall. We're going to be in Benson, Arizona today doing a town hall. It is the best way, in person.
What are some of the things that you hear from some of your constituents out there, the biggest concerns they have right now?
Oh, I mean, by far right now, it's the cost of living. Mm-hmm. It is affordability. It is the fact that people are concerned that landlords are jacking up their rents. That's one of the reasons that I brought the lawsuit against RealPage and 9 major landlords in Arizona who were colluding with one another to use an algorithm to artificially jack up rent.
Yeah.
And we're still in that lawsuit, but we have brought $1 million back to renters. That's 2 to 3 months worth of rent for those particular renters. But it's the cost of living. It is the cost of groceries. You both know I brought the lawsuit against the federal government over tariffs, which I think have been terrible for the cost of everything.
Yeah.
It's basically a $1,500 tax on Arizona families. Utilities, data centers. People are really, 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 and I think justifiably worried about the flood of data centers into Arizona and what that is doing to utility rates. And it is the excuse that utilities are using to try to increase utility prices.
Explain that if you can, the data centers and maybe utilities, water, and how we can balance that in the state of Arizona with still welcoming, I think, new business, because it makes our state is very attractive.
Yes, and I'm not reflexively opposed to data centers, but we have too many data centers coming to Arizona for the amount of water and power that we have. And we, the power issue is a big one that I think gets overlooked. We have a huge water supply issue and concern. The power issue, the utilities have to build out infrastructure to serve these data centers. And then what they do is they put the cost of that infrastructure into rates. So in essence, and that's what's happening with this APS rate increase request, 14%, which I am opposing formally on behalf of all Arizonans.
That's a huge jump.
It's huge, and it's the third in a row, by the way. But the data centers require a lot of additional power plants and power lines to serve them. I don't think Arizona residential consumers should be asked to pay the price for data centers for billionaires. And I think most Arizonans agree with that.
Yeah, and your job is to fight that. We had the governor on and her running mate this morning who were talking about the topic as well, saying, we have to find a way to bring them in without passing that cost on. So they have to figure that out. But you have to fight it if it's happening. Yeah. And that's tough because we do see so many of these data centers coming in.
And it's just unfair. And that's why we made the decision to invest resources, hire an expert, and get involved in both the APS and the TEP rate cases. The other thing is they need to be transparent about what they're trying to do, and they need to tell the people of Arizona exactly what is in the contracts. We had discovered in the Tucson electric power rate case that they redacted what the deal was that they were making with the data center. That's not okay, and so we're fighting those battles as they come up.
I think you come with an interesting perspective, and we talked last time too. The first time I met you, you were working working for the Arizona Corporation Commission.
Yes.
So you were handling those rate increase requests and things like that.
Yeah, I'm a former regulator of these utilities, so I kind of
you have an interesting perspective.
Yes, I know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And that's why we've made that a priority.
Let's talk about the upcoming election. What makes you different from Warren Petersen? And aside from party politics.
Well, we only have half hour.
But also add to that, as you're speaking about your opponent, your qualifications. You've been in the job, but we have so many new residents in the state of Arizona. A little bit about your background versus his.
Yeah. So I mean, look, I what I have focused on as your Attorney General is protecting Arizonans, going after corporate landlords who are not treating renters fairly. We have used antitrust law to prevent consolidation that harms consumers. We have actively and aggressively gone after the Mexican drug cartels along with local law enforcement, and have now seized more than 27 million fentanyl pills in the state of Arizona. That's more than any other attorney general in the history of our state. We are tough on crime out of my office, and we have fought these tariffs, these illegal tariffs, and we are going to protect our elections. My opponent is an election denier. He led the Cyber Ninjas audit. That was insane in 2020. My opponent also does not support law enforcement. That is a fact. He has voted 100 times to oppose pro-law enforcement bills of the legislature, including he voted to prevent the surviving spouses of police officers who were killed in the line of duty from getting additional resources. That's not okay. And he voted recently to prevent law enforcement from being able to advocate for pay increases. That's not okay. So there are a lot of differences between me and Warren Petersen, and we're going to be, we got a campaign coming up, and we're going to be making that argument that I am the true pro law enforcement attorney general, and I'm the one standing up for consumers, and that is a huge part of the job of attorney general.
I want to talk about your not finished campaign in just a moment, because we just got that press release today.
Yes.
But you mentioned law enforcement. You mentioned narcotics. Let's talk a little bit about ICE and the border wall, because ICE is a hot topic. We've seen a lot going on with ICE since January. Should Arizona cooperate fully with ICE? We want the drugs out. We don't want people in who are bringing the drugs in.
No, absolutely not. And I think that's what President Trump promised initially, was we're going to go after the worst of the worst, right? But that is actually not what they're doing. Now they're doing a lot of here's what they're actually doing, and what I object to. They are taking DEA agents that normally work with me to go after the Mexican drug cartels, and they're sending them to places like Minneapolis and Washington, D.C. to do interior immigration enforcement against people who have not committed crimes. I think we absolutely, I work all the time with DEA agents, FBI agents, HSI agents, ATF agents. This is how we go after the Mexican drug cartels and stop the fentanyl from coming in the first place. But I need those agents to be here in Arizona. We are on the front lines of the fight against the Mexican drug cartels, but this administration has been actually taking those agents away from us and sending them to other states. That doesn't make any sense.
So what's the solution?
The solution is and I've actually been advocating for more DEA agents in Arizona, even under the Biden administration.
Do we have a shortage right now?
Yes, 100% we do. Yeah. And it's unfortunately, and I know it may be hard for some folks to see this, but it's actually gotten worse under this president, because they've sent all these agents into other states and away from the border. They should be here in a border state doing this enforcement against the cartels and going after the worst of the worst. Absolutely, we should be coordinating with federal law enforcement, and we do that all the time. That is how I have seized 27 million fentanyl pills with federal law enforcement.
Do you have a few minutes to hang with us? We have some more questions.
Yes,
okay, wonderful.
yes.
We have to take a quick break here coming up, and I'll show you this beautiful shot here of this water park. And it's warm here in Arizona, so maybe you're wishing you were somewhere here with your kiddos. So we're going to take a quick break, show you this great shot. More with the Attorney General Kris Mayes this morning as she seeks re-election. We'll talk about some of the issues and questions you've thrown in the chat as well. And more on this in just a brief moment. We'll be right back. Attorney General Kris Mayes. So let's allow you to read it for us this morning.
Oh my goodness. Okay, what do you think the Attorney General's top focus should be right now? Fighting consumer scams, price gouging, and landlord neglect, protecting Arizona's water supply and groundwater rights, and joining national lawsuits against federal policies. So the big winner was protecting Arizona's water supply and groundwater rights.
Yeah, and we also have prosecuting local crimes and fraud, which is second place, 30%.
Prosecuting local crime and fraud.
Yeah, and so let's get to Dave real quick because Attorney General, he's got comments.
Are you ready for this? You have a thick skin.
Dave.
Tons of comments on YouTube.
Okay, that's fascinating.
We call him Big D.
It's fascinating.
Anna Mooney says water is the top priority. Nothing can run without it. Mark Blackmore says keep Trump from meddling in our national elections. Rio Crypto says how can you do anything before stopping crime and fraud? And Comment Moderator says an attorney general's only job is fighting crime. That's literally what the job is. They are the city's top cop. Would love to hear what Kris Mayes has to say.
Yeah, that is interesting because everyone votes for something different, and you have to try to please or to do all of it.
No, and it's what's fascinating is we are doing all those things. So I love
it.
But the water answer is really interesting. And as you know, we've been really working hard on groundwater supplies, protecting. We sued the Saudis in western Arizona for over pumping the groundwater aquifer there. I'm still in that litigation.
Right.
I don't think the Saudis should be allowed to pump our water to grow alfalfa to send back to Saudi Arabia. We did the same thing down in southeastern Arizona, and we actually won a settlement, a $12 million settlement, to help people re-drill their wells after a Minnesota dairy dewatered their aquifer. But yes, a big part of this job is fighting fraud and crime. We do a ton of that, as we just talked about. And what was the other?
Here, I'll go ahead and put it back up for you.
Yeah, and then
joining national lawsuits.
That's exactly. I mean, we do some of that. Obviously, the tariffs lawsuits were big, but protecting, fighting fraud, definitely. Fighting consumer scams, we do that all day long. Price gouging, we talked about that issue. You know, I'm suing the insurance industry for improperly using an algorithm to deny claims. So we do a ton of that.
So
we do all of those
when
things.
you read that, when you read some of those things, and your ads have said, you know, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, and you've been very vocal about that. I think you've done a great job on kind of coming out to the media and saying, holding these press conferences, and this is where we stand on this issue. And but when you look ahead to the election, do you think the race is more about law enforcement? You mentioned DEA type stuff and how you need those officers to help you, or is it about more the political side of it and kind of dealing with the political issues at hand, like maybe regulating, the water usage in the state or something like that?
I mean, I think it's definitely about these issues that were raised in the poll, and that's what I'll be campaigning on. Obviously, there's politics involved in everything, and you can't, there's politics involved in even some, many of these things that are on the screen to some degree or the other. But it's really about the issues: fighting crime, fighting scams, especially elder abuse and elder scams. That's been a huge focus of ours. Protecting our water supplies, making sure that we enforce our antitrust laws in Arizona, and that is a huge issue. That's a big part of making life more affordable for Arizonans is making sure that we don't have too much corporate consolidation. That's why I fought the proposed merger of Safeway and Fry's, because I thought that would have driven up, we knew.
It absolutely would
have driven up
There's
prices.
No competition.
No competition.
It's interesting that you brought up the politics, because I think with a position like this, when people go to vote, yes, they see the D, they see the R, but you are here, the Attorney General is here to protect us.
Yes.
And so you don't want it to be a political position.
I don't.
You want it to be a position where you know who to go after and you know how to protect.
Yes, and in a lot of ways, I ran to depoliticize the office, and I believe that we have done that. I really believe that we have done that by focusing on crime, scams, focusing on going after the Mexican drug cartels, focusing on our groundwater supplies, and letting our professional prosecutors do their jobs.
Is there something that you've worked on in this last, term as Attorney General that you say, I wish that would have gone a different direction? I wish maybe
Yes.
What is that?
So I have a really, really clear answer to that, and it is that one of the things I've been very upset with, and including my opponent, Warren Petersen, is that he swept more than $100 million in opioid treatment funding from the One Arizona opioid settlement. We got under my predecessor, Mark Brnovich, one of the things that I give him kudos for, and he was a Republican, is that he won a $1.2 billion settlement with the pharmaceutical companies who have been killing our kids and families with opioids. The legislature swept $120 million of that money to backfill a budget deficit led by Warren Petersen. That is outrageous. I sued them over that. I lost that case. We may sue them again because the judge said, you know what, Kris Mayes is right on the substance, but she has to prove that they misspent the money in the prison system. And I think people have died because of that. That money was meant for treatment, and it was not spent that way.
This might be a silly question, but because I don't understand how it works at your level when it comes to, but if Anita and I were to sue somebody, it would cost us money.
You read my mind.
But when you talk about all these lawsuits, is there money involved that it takes to sue these companies or people, or
not really?
Are we paying that? Are we paying those?
Well,
lawsuits?
only in the sense that you, as taxpayers, fund the office, and I decide how the lawyers spend their time. But when you look at all the lawsuits that we filed, I think it's been money really well spent, because we are fighting the Mexican drug cartels. We are suing these corporations that are hurting renters and causing rent to spike. We fought and defeated that merger of Fry's and Safeway, and we filed 3 lawsuits, and I co-led the 3 lawsuits against the tariffs, and we won at the Supreme Court. I saved every Arizona family $1,500 a year. So yes, it definitely costs resources inside the office, but I think the ROI on that has been huge.
Yeah, return on investment, just in case you don't know what ROI is. So you're from Prescott.
Yep.
Republican at one point?
Yep. For most of my adult life, I was a Republican.
What made you switch?
I really felt as though the Republican Party left me, and I think it's become the leadership of the Republican Party is out of touch with average Arizonans and has become too extreme, and that's just that, so I left the party in 2019.
And we have to wrap here soon, but I do have one last question for you. So as we look ahead to the election, let's just say hypothetically, Biggs wins as governor. Your relationship, being a Democrat with Republicans, how does that work? How does your relationship with the governor work for Arizona? And how do you make that relationship work if a Republican is voted as governor?
It's a great question. And I will do what I've always done, which is work with whoever I need to work with to get things done for Arizonans. And if obviously I'm not supporting Andy Biggs for governor, but I will work with anybody, and that's you see that.
Do.
That's what I do. That you see that in the fact that I work with Republican sheriffs all across Arizona. I work with Republican police chiefs, Democratic police chiefs, the DEA under Donald Trump. I work with Donald Trump gave my team the award for being the best Medicaid fraud prosecutors in the country last year.
Let's talk about not finished as we are wrapping up. That is the campaign as we're moving ahead. Very smart. Not finished. You have more work to do. You're telling people.
We got 4 years. We need 4 more years. I'm asking Arizonans for their vote and their trust and their confidence for 4 more years so we can continue this work on their behalf.
And in 4 more years, your daughter will be a senior in high school.
Right, exactly. Just dropped her off in 8th grade, as we were talking about before the show.
I loved 8th grade.
Oh.
8th grade was a highlight. I'll never forget 8th grade.
I don't know if I loved 8th grade, but I hope she does.
Now, freshman year of high school, no.
Not so much.
8th grade, you're the top
yeah,
dog.
no kidding. Attorney General Kris Mayes, thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Great to see
Please
you.
come back.
Your time.
I will.
Lovely
Thank you so much.
conversation.
We are going to go back out to this very cool shot as we kind of gear up for one last story for you this morning. And this has to do, for speaking of school, those back to school pictures that you may be showing all over social media. There is, in fact, a warning here from the FBI this morning. They're saying, don't put these photos on social media with a lot of your information on them, because you could be letting parents and maybe other people know that shouldn't know a lot of information about your family.
There are those cute posters saying, my name is Susie, I'm in first grade, I like chocolate. And I saw a post about this on Instagram and brought it to our producer's attention. And I thought, everyone's doing it, and they're absolutely adorable, but you get that picture in the wrong hands. And
it's a no-go.
It's something nefarious can happen.
Yeah. Attorney General, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's an interesting question because I did post on the first day of school, but did not post my daughter's school, and I think it's a really good warning to folks, and it's a reminder that we need to protect our schools. We need school safety.
We do. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
And thank